Unfortunately, many people treat veterans poorly, so when these 5 teenagers saw an elderly veteran enjoying his meal, they disturbed him until he cried. Then this happened. Luzov was a 74-year-old man living in Granite City, Illinois, with his wife, Annette. That night, the couple went out to eat at a Cracker Barrel, looking forward to having a good time together. As usual, Lou wore his veteran baseball cap, which said U.S. Navy Vietnam veteran, a quiet reminder of his service. As Lou and Annette stepped into the diner, the air smelled of fried chicken and pancakes. The old couple sat down at their favorite table in the restaurant. The comfy old chairs felt like a warm hug. And the gentle murmur of people talking made a nice background noise for their special dinner. Almost immediately, 5 young men burst into the restaurant, laughing loudly. They wore typical everyday clothing, but there was something odd about them that caught Lou's attention. The tallest of them had tightly cut brown hair and laughed the loudest. Next to him was a shorter, stronger-looking one with a shaved head and a tattoo of a mean-looking dog on his arm. Beside him was a quiet observer who pushed his glasses up his nose as he scanned the room. The penultimate one had a friendly smile and kept nudging the last one, who had dark circles under his eyes. The young men were full of energy. And their laughter made it hard to hear other people talking softly. Lou, always observant, noticed them heading in his direction. He felt a little nervous when they looked his way. After all those years in the Navy, he knew how to sense danger. Had they been drinking? Were they looking for trouble? A hold-up, maybe? Lou touched his wedding ring for comfort, and the familiar feel of it calmed him down a bit. The young men sat down at a table a few spots away from Lou's, and their laughter subsided as they began talking quietly. Lou still felt like they were watching him. When he looked their way again, his eyes met one of theirs for a second. The young man's eyes widened slightly before nervously darting away. Lou frowned, unsure of what to think. He was looking forward to a peaceful dinner with Annette but now felt a little worried. He didn't know it then, but the young men had noticed Lou and his hat, and they were about to make this an evening he'd never forget. After discussing their options, Lou and Annette ordered fried cod. As soon as the elderly couple got their order, the teenagers sprung into action. Lou was just enjoying his meal quietly when one of the young men came over and stood at his table. Lou huffed. He had been right, these young boys had been sizing him up. But for what? He thought he was just another old man with his wife here to enjoy his meal. Or was it because of his cap? Lou couldn't really tell. But one thing was for sure, no matter how old he was, he couldn't just back down easily. As the first young man got to his table, Lou stood up until he was eye to eye with him. The young man was the short, strong-looking one with the dog tattoo on his arm. Annette subtly tapped Lou on his arm, hinting at him to be gentler, but Lou wasn't standing down. Since these young men had come in, they had been disturbing him with their looks and stares. Now one of them had come to confront him at his table. Lou might be old, but he felt he could take the young man on without any help. After all, he had been a serviceman for as long as he could remember. When Lou was the young man's age, he had just graduated from high school. Lou had been born in Granite City and attended Granite City High School, where he first met the love of his life, Annette. They were deeply in love and dreamed of a future together, but those dreams had to be put on hold because Lou had to figure out his life. Being the son of immigrant parents from Macedonia, Lou had little to no steady economic footing. There was no money for him to go to college and get a good job in the future, so to support his family, Lou had to start earning a living right away. The quickest way to do that was to sign up for the military, but Lou wasn't just after a paycheck, he wanted to truly serve his country, which he called his own. When he enlisted in the Navy at 18, he was eager to see the world and make a difference. When he went on his first tour, Annette waved from the dock as Lou's ship sailed away. Macedonians didn't give their kids middle names, so Lou didn't have one. This made things a bit difficult and funny in the Navy, as he always had NMN, no middle name, in parentheses in the middle of his name on all documents. But serving his country in the Navy came at a price. Apart from not seeing his family for long periods, it affected his friendships and relationships. Lou was always stationed on ships for long periods of time, sometimes at sea for almost a year. The distance began to strain their relationship. Back home, Annette felt alone. And her family began to worry about her future with a sailor who was always gone, pressuring her to consider other options closer to home. One day, Lou came back from a tour to a world turned upside down. He returned to find Annette pregnant and about to marry someone else. The pressure from her family and the long periods of Lou's absence had driven her to this heartbreaking decision. Lou was heartbroken. The life he had envisioned with Annette slipped away like sand through his fingers. He had no choice but to accept her decision, even though it hurt him badly. The Navy became his sole focus. He poured all his energy into his duties, finding solace in the structure and routine of ship life. From 1959 to 1963, Lou served on various Navy ships during the Vietnam War. He was a petty officer second class and served on the aircraft carrier USS Coral Sea in 1961 and 1962. He was designated a parachute rigger but served as a plane captain on the carrier, responsible for planes from pre-flight checks until they returned to the ship. After trying his hand in different businesses and ventures, Lou realized he found his true purpose only in serving. He got married, had a son, and spent 32 years as a police officer. He became a detective for the SIU police force in the 1970s and later worked court security with the U.S. Marshal Service. Finally, in 1996, he decided to retire and enjoy his golden years. In 2009, tragedy struck. Lou's wife passed away after over 30 years of marriage. Lou missed her terribly, and her passing hurt him deeply. It was during this vulnerable time, while making arrangements for his wife's funeral, that fate intervened in a shocking way. Standing across the room was Annette. It had been over 40 years since they last saw each other. Annette was there for the same reason as Lou, making funeral arrangements for her husband, who had also passed away that week. Annette had recently lost her son as well. Lou and Annette found solace in each other's company, offering comfort during this difficult time. The connection they once shared rekindled into a warm friendship. As they spent more time together, their bond deepened. The spark that had flickered all those years ago had never truly been extinguished, and it began to glow once more. Eventually, love bloomed anew, and they chose to spend the rest of their lives together. After 50 years apart, Lou and Annette had been reunited by destiny. They weren't the young sweethearts anymore, but despite all the time apart and the hardships, their hearts still beat for each other. Annette even had a son who served the country like Lou in his youth. He was an Air Force officer, and Lou was proud to meet him. From their previous marriages, Lou had one son, while Annette had 3 other sons and a daughter. Today was like an anniversary for them, and they were celebrating with a simple dinner. The only problem seemed to be the 5 teenagers disturbing them. Lou was already on his feet, ready to face the first one, when the young man did something shocking. The young man extended his hand to shake Lou's, wanting to thank the old veteran for his service and sacrifice. The gesture caught Lou completely off guard. This was nothing like what he was expecting. It wasn't the type of scene that unfolded at dining establishments every day, but it was real. The young man, roughly 19 years old, really wanted to shake his hand. Lou returned the handshake with a smile and a firm grip. The young man smiled back and returned to his seat. Lou thought it ended there, but he was wrong. By the end of the day, he would be in tears. The rest of the group stood up and expressed their gratitude as they came closer. Lou could see they were military because of their high and tight haircuts. It didn't stop with one handshake. As soon as the first man returned to his table, the second Marine got up and walked over to Lou. Once again, the old vet stood up, unsure of what would happen next. The second young man told Lou that he wanted to thank him on behalf of all 5 of them. He pointed to the others as he said this. Lou felt touched by their actions. These were no troublemakers or dishonorably discharged soldiers. These were a new generation of soldiers with nothing but respect for him and his past service. Lou waved at them in acknowledgement and then signaled to Annette that he was going to their table. He went over to the young men's seats to talk with them briefly. It turned out that they were all Marines in civilian clothing, currently on temporary duty for schooling at Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri. They had been to a Blues hockey game the night before and had stopped to grab a bite before heading back to base. Lou expressed his appreciation and wished all the men well with their future military careers. After that, he returned to his wife and his meal, thinking that was the end of it. When Lou and Annette finished their dinner, he beckoned for a waiter to bring the check. When the waiter arrived at the table, he waved the bill with a big smile on his face. He told Lou it was his lucky day, the young Marines had paid for Lou's dinner. What's more, there was a message on the receipt. One of the Marines had written Semper Fi across the top with an aura at the bottom. Lou was completely taken by surprise by this gesture. He went over to their table and put his arm around one of the guys. They had indeed done something nice, but Lou insisted they didn't have to pay for his dinner. A simple thank you was more than enough. Plus, from his experience, Lou knew that being in the military, you didn't make a lot of money. Soldiers had to be meticulous in their spending. The Marines stood firm. They were emphatic and wanted Lou to know how much they appreciated his service. They understood that his commitment to the nation probably came with great sacrifice, including enduring distance from loved ones and trauma one could only imagine. Lou quickly brought out a pen and paper and had 4 of the Marines write their names and phone numbers on the back of the bill, hoping to return the favor someday. The Marines were Kevin Morris, aged 18, Val Diaz, aged 21, Eric A. Morales, aged 18, and Victor M. Gomez, aged 19. They were all private first class. Lou didn't get the name of the 5th Marine, who was off paying the bill. Lou thanked them for their kindness once again and wished them good luck in their future service. As Lou and Annette were about to leave, something else happened that left all the other guests in awe. As the young Marines saw they were about to part ways, they decided to give the veteran one last show of respect. While Elijah was paying the bill, the other 4 walked up to Lou's table and extended their hands to shake the veteran's hand one last time. As they did, Lou began to tear up. But as expected, that was not all. Each of them thanked and hugged him one by one. This time, Lou could not hold back the tears. They started dropping from his eyes. The Marines filed in front of his table and stood in line. After each one shook and hugged him, they walked to his right. The atmosphere in the restaurant, once noisy and chatty, was now replaced with an unusual quiet as the patrons watched the Marines' orderly conduct. When it got to the 4th Marine, he did something that brought back a lot of memories for Lou. He gave Lou the sharpest salute he'd ever seen in all his years of service. As he did so, the man turned and marched out of the restaurant immediately. The entire restaurant stood up and gave a resounding round of applause. Lou was in awe. He felt the deepest gratitude for the men who so emphatically expressed their appreciation for his service. He couldn't help but turn to his wife, who was also touched by the display. She had to warn Lou to sit down and catch his breath before they left. Truly, he had to because he could feel his heart swell. Annette was deeply moved by the scene. It spoke volumes for the military, presenting it more positively. It made her think of her son, who had retired from the Air Force, and the people who thanked him for his service. It was truly rewarding to see that the military values were so strong and so polite. Lou did not let the story end there. The very next week, he called the local paper to tell his story because he couldn't express how much it affected him. He still teared up whenever he talked about the incident. As far as Lou was concerned, those young Marines were such an asset to their country. They were the perfect ambassadors for the Marine Corps and their nation. Lou later identified the 5th Marine as 19-year-old Private First Class Elijah Roldan. All 5 Marines were located and reached at Fort Leonard Wood. When the newspaper reached out to the privates for comment, they were surprised at the publicity. They simply said it was the right thing to do, nothing more. Private First Class Diaz explained why it was important for the Marines to show their respect for the Vietnam veteran. Diaz, not really a teenager like the rest, was a 21-year-old from Texas. As the oldest of the five, he repeated that it was the right thing to do. Lou had fought for them in the past, and now it was their turn. Honoring him was just part of their job. They were short on words but long on politeness. The actions of those young Marines at the restaurant made a significant mark on Lou's life. The 74-year-old vet was happy to see the dedication to the country in younger generations, including those joining the VFW. The VFW, or Veterans of Foreign Wars, is a veteran body. Lou was currently the senior vice commander of Granite City VFW Post 1300. No longer were the veterans limited to those who saw action in Vietnam. Now, they had young men joining who served in Afghanistan and Iraq. These men had the same camaraderie, dedication, and loyalty to their country. They were really proud to have served, just like Lou. In the end, Lou's story reminds us how important it is to show our appreciation for those who have served. Even a small gesture can make a big impact. Respect and gratitude are the least we can give to the brave men and women who risk their lives for our freedoms and protection. How best do you think we can show respect for the heroes who sacrificed for their country? Share your thoughts in the comments.